अस्सलाम वालेकुम एवरीवन माय नेम इज़ समर हसन जैसे कि आप जानते हैं मैं फाउंडर हूँ एपिफनी की एज यू गाइस नो आई एम द फाउंडर ऑफ एपिफनी एंड आई एम बैक after a whole month because we do this smashing it session every month and this time around again I've got a fantastic guest with me called Huma Hamid. बहुत सारे लोग ऑलरेडी हुमा को जानते होंगे बिकॉज हुमा इज़ वेरी एक्टिव इन द टेक कम्युनिटी. शी इज़ वेरी पैशनेट अबाउट वॉल्टियरिंग, काफ़ी ज़्यादा वॉल्ट्री काम करती हैं, women को प्रमोट करती हैं, encourage करती हैं, empower करने की कोशिश करती हैं, especially in the tech industry. So obviously we will talk to her about all of that. Before we start, very quickly I want to kind of remind everybody हम smashing it करते क्यों हैं, ठीक है? ये initial part थोड़ा सा उर्दू वाला होगा, फिर उसके बाद we'll try to mix it up between Urdu and English. So smashing it started back in July of 2017. And essentially it started because we felt that there are so many fantastic Pakistani women who are actually doing wonderful things. But they don't get enough opportunity to be highlighted and really recognized as role models. तो हमने ये सोचा कि हमें diversity, inclusion, women empowerment इन तमाम चीज़ों के लिए, इन तमाम reasons की वजह से हमें promote करना चाहिए उन पाकिस्तानी ख़वातीन को जो कि बहुत ज़्यादा शायद famous नहीं है, but they have been achieving a lot of amazing things in their careers. So that was the background why we started doing it. अब हमने कैसे evolve किया उसको कि हम mix up करते हैं, सिर्फ वो नहीं जो कि famous नहीं है बल्कि जो famous भी personalities हैं उनको भी हम बुलाते हैं अपने show के अंदर. Why? Because we want to inspire other women, we want to inspire other young men. It's not only about inspiring only women, it's also about inspiring young people. Because जैसे कि हमें पता है काफ़ी दफ़ा अब obviously मुझे काफ़ी साल हो गए हैं I may not be that young anymore. I've spent quite a number of years on the planet, but I still remember how it is when you're a young person and you're trying to craft your journey. And sometimes you're lost, sometimes you're confused, sometimes आप अपने आप को question करते हो, आप सोचते हो कि ओ ये शायद हम नहीं कर सकते. So the whole objective behind smashing it was also to highlight women who've been doing remarkable things while having very successful personal lives as well. Creating impact while pursuing amazing careers. So everything, balancing everything together. So essentially, that's why we've got this fantastic lady with us today. Her name is Huma Hamid. And I'm actually going to let Huma introduce herself a little bit more. Very briefly, I'll just say that Huma Hamid is a tech maker by heart and a volunteer by soul. And through her career, throughout her life, she's been doing interesting things. So Huma, over to you. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for being here.
Assalamu alaikum, Samar. Thank you for inviting, and it's a really exciting show, exactly where my passion lies. So I'm happy to be here, and yes, I'll introduce myself. So currently, I'm a technical program manager working on digital learning platform at DevCX Cisco. I'm based in Washington State in the US. Yes, I go by tech maker because I've been working in tech for more than 15 years, and I have taken several different roles in engineering, product, and program management. So at the end of the day, I build technology no matter what my title is. A lot of people know me because of my volunteer work with PWIC. I'm the co-founder for PWIC, built the organization from ground up with Farali. And then, but before that, I have been, part of several initiatives or volunteer work, with different tech communities, focused on diversity and inclusion. And a lot of this is my own journey, my personal journey, from living in Pakistan, getting education there, wanted to do something really exciting, interesting. I have a passion for building, learning, and impact. So a lot of these things that you are seeing today, the foundation was built 15 years ago. And finally, the impact is, it's visible or obvious.
Thank you, Huma. Tell us a little bit about, before coming to the US, what was your life like? What was your journey like? And how have you reached the point that you're at today?
Yes, so that's a really good question. It's, people are always evolving, they're always changing. So journey, the way people see today has been very different when I started. I'm born and raised in Pakistan, spent most of my life in different cities in Punjab, and lived in Karachi, lived in Islamabad. But before coming to the US, last 10 years, I I've been living in Islamabad. Um, like any other student, the expectation, any other good student, female, student who is good in her studies, the expectation from me was also to become a doctor. And my mother was also associated with, the health department. So she always thought that this will be an obvious choice for me. I always had a rebellious streak, so I decided not to choose medicine, and I choose engineering, and I went to NUST. These days it's called SEEKS, this School of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science. So I graduated from there in 2005. Um, it was a very, I think it was a very young, Pakistan's tech industry was going through the initial stages of what it's going to look like. So there were very few opportunities for us. Most of the opportunities were in software development or working for offshore companies. So that's how I started my career. I worked for a couple of companies in Pakistan, but I also wanted to learn more. So I went to London for my master's program, and I got really interested in. That's where I got interested in the research side and the impact of technology side of things. And I was looking into what will be the impact of using all these latest technology and systems in countries like Pakistan. So I did my research over there. It was part of my master's program, and I was able to publish a few papers on that. However, when I came back to Pakistan to be with my family, I wasn't able to pursue the research part of it. So I decided to join the industry, and from there, the journey is, there's no looking back.
Okay. So Huma, I'm going to ask you a difficult question. Can you
Sure.
describe yourself in 3 words? ठीक है, आप 3 अल्फाज में अपने आप को जरा describe तो करो.
I'm a very curious person. So that, I like to explore, I like to learn. I'm a very flexible and agile. So a lot of that has helped me in my transition, different countries, different companies, different job roles. And I'm very persistent. So if you give me a problem to solve, I will try it like 50 different ways and 50 different times until I get to a solution. And so these are the top three strengths, or this is how I describe myself.
Mhm. That's awesome. I mean, I didn't even share this question beforehand, right? And you just had them tuck, tuck, tuck. I like that. Okay, so Homa, tell me something else. Tell us about some challenges that you may have faced in your journey, because you mentioned that you're persistent and you even if problems come your way, you're able to solve them. So give us some example.
Right. So I think the major part of my journey was there has been two things that or two challenges that I had to, first one was very much related to self-discovery. I really wanted to know what I like doing, and with so many various interests, I've been doing volunteer work. I've been part of different communities and volunteer, and even, as a student, I was interested in like all different sorts of things and debates and sports and arts and crafts and technology. So it was really hard for me to find where my like who I am and define myself. It took me a while to find that and to answer that question. I do not know if I fully know that, but at least I have an idea that it's okay to be a person with multiple skill set. It's okay to be a person, to be an expert journalist, um, and try different things. And you may be good at few things, you may not be good at few, but it's really okay to try. So I think knowing and then trying and failing and learning, that has been it. Now I have built a muscle for that, but when I started, I thought, oh no, ये नहीं हो रहा, ये समझ नहीं आ रहा, ये कैसे होगा, कोई मुझे बताए कि क्या करना है. And I think a lot of people actually get stuck in that phase, and they get disappointed, and they get discouraged or demotivated. But it's really essential part of anyone's journey, especially when you're growing. So that was one thing. And then the transformation or the transition part of it, that every time when I'm starting, doing something new, if it's a different company that I'm working for, different
Hmm.
team, different job role, um, जो technical side चीजों की है वो इतनी नहीं बदलती जितनी कल्चरल और यू नीड टू हैव दैट मेंटल स्ट्रेंथ. सो आपको डिफरेंसेस आइडेंटिफाई करने पड़ते हैं डिफरेंट टीम्स के अंदर डिफरेंट लोगों के साथ इंटरेक्ट करने के लिए. सो वहाँ पे आपकी जो mental strength, आपकी communication skills, how your intuition, all of that really helps in identifying and then being successful and, to be able to navigate those situations. It took me a while to figure that out, like how to do that repeatedly over and over again so you don't get stuck in that cycle that I'm not growing or I'm not learning. So these are the two things that I personally feel that um, I had to learn, I had to spend time, and there is no shortcut, when it comes to finding your strengths, finding your calling, finding your passion, and then learning how to navigate. एक उसकी बहुत छोटी सी एग्जांपल है कि जब मैं पाकिस्तान में थी तब भी मैं एक यूएस बेस्ड कंपनी के लिए काम कर रही थी तो communication, we have a very different style of communication. It's called an indirect communication style. Like people do not ask you directly ask you if they need something from you. You have to like they will ask like five different things and then they will get to the point. Um, and coming to the US, this was a major difference, especially in communication style. So I was able to do my work. I was delivering and producing the work that I was expected to do. लेकिन उस कम्युनिकेशन डिफरेंट स्टाइल उसको समझना जो था वो एक बहुत जरूरी भी था क्योंकि उसी में आपकी ग्रोथ है. जब आप अपने काम को प्रेजेंट नहीं कर सकते या अपने काम को उन लोगों के सामने प्रेजेंट नहीं कर सकते जहाँ पे मैटर करता है या उन अल्फाज में प्रेजेंट नहीं कर सकते या उसका इम्पैक्ट नहीं बता सकते तो वो सारी चीजें जो हैं वो आपकी एटलीस्ट आपकी करियर ट्रेजेक्टरी पे बहुत इम्पैक्ट करती हैं. So that's what I learned. Okay, direct communication style or indirect communication style. What's the main difference? And हमारे cultural differences की वजह से उस mental barrier को break करना भी एक it was a challenge. And I tried it over and over again. I learned about it. I talked to my mentors about it, and finally, I think I was able to, have a breakthrough. So, usme, this is just one example. And then when you go into a new place or with it, starting over, having a learner's mindset, having something, you don't bring your previous like you don't bring a baggage with you कि मुझे ये आता है या मुझे वो आता है या मुझे ये पता है. अगर आपने कहीं पे भी अपनी जगह बनानी है तो आपको लर्नर्स माइंडसेट में जाके ही स्टार्ट करना पड़ता है. So you have to show that you're willing to learn, you're willing to change yourself, willing to adapt. And these are the things, these are the core competencies जो कि आपको आजकल की दुनिया में जहाँ पे हर चीज बहुत तेजी से चेंज हो रही है, it really helps. So that's what I learned, and I would really like people to to pay attention to some of these things if they're planning on moving or
No,
companies
I
teams.
think that was filled with a lot of wisdom, nuggets of wisdom. इसी वजह से मैं चुपचाप होके सुन रही थी because I didn't want to interrupt you. I think
Sure.
this was really useful for the audience that we have. You mentioned mentors, right? And I think
Mhm,
mentorship is a very important piece जो कि काफ़ी दफ़ा हम भूल भी जाते हैं. और जैसे
mhm.
आपने mention भी किया कि कभी-कभी cultural differences की वजह से as Pakistani, sometimes we shy away from asking for help, right? हमें लगता है कि
Yes.
शायद अगर हम पूछेंगे, लोग क्या कहेंगे, लोग क्या सोचेंगे, we just feel bad about asking, right?
Mhm,
And obviously, when you have a strong network of mentors, that's your comfort zone. You're able to talk about anything and everything. So, would you like to mention about how you went about building this community of mentors? एक थे, एक से ज़्यादा थे. कुछ strategies जो आप बताना चाहो कि how to, cultivate your relationships with people who can support you.
mhm. Right. So I have always been looking for people that I can extract inspiration or extract from their experience. So मैं एक्टिवली ऐसे लोगों को अपने सर्कल में देखती हूँ जब भी मैं किसी नई नई जगह पे जाती हूँ या even when I was in school or I was working, I actively look for people who can inspire me. और जैसे जैसे ऑफ कोर्स मेरा एक्सपीरियंस बढ़ता गया, मेरा अपना नेटवर्क बढ़ता गया, तो वो लोगों का सर्कल भी बढ़ता गया. The first thing that I do is to I like to observe them and see कि वो क्या offer करते हैं, उनकी क्या, like what kind of impact that they are creating in their own space and capacity, and if it's aligned with me. So if that is aligned with me, then I proactively reach out to them. I reach out to them with specific questions or specific asks. But before I reach out, I have always spent some time, working, doing my homework. Like, why do I need to talk to this person? What exactly will I be, we will be talking about, and how this is going to help me in my journey or my learning. So, वो सारी चीजों की वजह से, I think I was able to find some really, really good people. I don't think I have a huge network of mentors that um, I can mention, but there are definitely people who have influenced me either directly or indirectly, who became mentors that I reached out to them, for day-to-day life questions or for bigger questions in life, like where do you think I'm going, or help me understand, how to do this thing. I have this goal and I would like to achieve, and this is where I stuck. What would be your advice? Break through some of those, कोई ऐसी key, आपके phases होते हैं आपकी life में जब आप, when you feel like you're hitting a wall. So that's when mentors can really help you. But I would also like to emphasize on the fact mentors alone are not enough. Having sponsors is very important. So the difference between mentor and a sponsor is, the sponsor is somebody who is in a position of authority and influence, and they can actually do something. They're not just giving you the advice; they're actually actively connecting you with opportunities, or paving the path for you, or you put you in a position that where you can perform. So I've been lucky that I found both type of people in my career, in my life, and it's equally important to have both, because you at when as you grow, see, like, as you grow in your experience, you start mentoring other people, and especially in tech, there are different stages where if you don't have somebody who can sponsor you, or who can believe in um, your basically your potential, some barriers are really, really challenging to break, and that's where I think both mentoring and sponsoring helps. And that's some of the work that I encourage through different organizations, that they focus on these areas.
So, Huma, sometimes when young people are actually seeking out mentors and stuff, right? Because when you're younger, anybody
Mhm,
who's older seems much more accomplished. He or she seems to be the right mentor. But
mhm,
at times, they may not be a very good fit, right? And it could be that they don't understand your journey well enough, or maybe it's not such a deep interest that they have
mhm.
taken in you as a person, in your career, and you get misdirected. So, would you have any suggestions for young people how to avoid that, especially women? Because sometimes, I mean, like I just explained, the problem that may happen. तो आपको क्या लगता है कि कैसे उसको avoid किया जा सकता है?
Um, it happens, and it has happened. Of course, unless you started, unless you start talking with somebody, and then you know them on a personal level, then it's really hard for you to gauge if a mentor is a good fit for me. So finding that alignment, that's why I would highly encourage that you spend some time, you do your homework, you learn about yourself, like, why do you need mentoring, where exactly do you need mentoring. So going unprepared will not help you, it will not help the mentor. That's why it's important to spending time exploring your interest, in exploring your the areas where you're seeking mentorship. And then also spend some time observing the other person. Just because someone is successful or visible or available doesn't mean that they will be a good mentor for you. So you need to know what they have been doing before they met you, what kind of impact they have been creating. So I spend a lot of time observing people before I reach out to them, so I know exactly what if they are the right fit for me. So doing your homework on yourself and on the mentor will reduce situations where you will be disappointed. But I will also say that it's it may be, you may come across different experiences in life, and you find somebody and they do not fit in your plan or grand scheme of life. And what you will learn from that failed mentoring or any sort of experience or relationship, you will find this is not where I would like to go, or this is not the kind of stuff that I need. And that will help you bring the focus back to where you really want to spend your time energy. So f- disappointment is not a bad thing. Failure is not a bad thing, and it's not it's not permanent. You keep evolving, you keep learning. So that would be my advice. कि कोई भी आप mentorship सीख करें, do your homework first.
I think that's very, very smart advice. I think there is a lot of pressure on young startups, young people as well. Your network is your net worth and blah, blah, is tarah ki sari baatein. Whereas a closely cultivated network, which may be
Mhm.
very small, but really people who you have your back, I think that can usually actually matter a lot more. So I'm glad you pointed that out. Abhi aapne failures की भी बात की है, right? And I think failure accept करना बहुत मुश्किल होता है वैसे generally भी. And I think again because पाकिस्तान के अंदर रहते हुए हम फेलियर्स सेलिब्रेट नहीं करते राइट इट्स जस्ट लाइक ओ माय गॉड व्हाट हैव आई डन एंड अ लॉट ऑफ
Mhm.
सेल्फ पेनलाइजेशन दैट टेक्स प्लेस ठीक है एंड
Mhm.
वुमेन के अंदर काफ़ी प्रोमिनेंट भी होती हैं फीलिंग्स डिड यू एवर गो थ्रू समथिंग लाइक दिस kind of like your darkest moment and if or somebody in your network and what happened how did those people try to pull themselves out of it.
Absolutely. My journey, and I do talk about these things because I wanted to make it real. I wanted to make it, it's part of life. Being vulnerable is okay. Talking about failure is okay. So, um, yes, I have gone through several different failures. I have the longest list of, job interviews that I have failed, and I kept trying. And every time what I learned from those interviews is what I did not know, or it always made me, I would say, in that moment, yes, I was disappointed. I thought, अगर थोड़ा सा और कर लेती, शायद थोड़ी सी और मेहनत कर लेती, शायद ये मुझे पता होता या वो मैं कर लेती. सो वो आप उस साइकिल में आप जा सकते हैं, लेकिन उसमें बहुत सारी चीजें जो हैं वो बहुत सारी चीजें सीखी भी हैं. सो फेलियर्स के बहुत सारे ऐसे फेजेस आए हैं, दो फेजेस especially ज़्यादा, that has really impacted me. So when after doing my master's, when I came back to Pakistan, um, um, so I started looking for jobs. I left, I left a really good position before I went to UK. So when I came back, I thought I didn't realize that it will take me some time. आपको थोड़ा टाइम लगता है अपनी नई जॉब ढूंढने के लिए, especially when you don't have the right you know support system, or the industry is still evolving, and it's really hard to find where the jobs are and who to contact and how to apply. So all of these things were still a work in progress, and I was learning how to do that. So those I think that year after coming back from my master's, there was a lot of expectation that I had, and a lot of expectation that other people around me they had. उनके ख्याल में बाहर से पढ़ के आई थी, पाकिस्तान में जॉब भी करती थी, तो मुझे क्या मसला हो सकता है कि मुझे जॉब नहीं मिलती, फॉरेन नहीं मिलती. But I had my share of failures. I had gone through several different interviews, जो कि apparently for not any obvious reason they didn't work out, and then I kept trying, and I I hit a point where I was really questioning that, am I really good enough? Am I really in the right field? What's wrong with me? Or what's wrong with the system, and what's wrong with everything else? But now when I look back, I think it was a combination of different things. But what it gave me a really good understanding on how I can help other people go through similar phases in their life when they are struggling, and they're thinking that ये क्यों नहीं हो रहा, ये कैसे नहीं हो रहा. So वो एक था, and then the same cycle repeated when I came to the US. You always, and I already had experience, I already had education, I already had the network. I came here and I thought it would be much easier for me to find job. But again, that's where the communication and cultural differences came in, how to go through those interviews, and I think a lot of people who are first generation immigrants, they do go through that phase. They may not talk about those phases. So usually when people look at them and at their journey, they think, oh, now she's doing this and she's so successful. But there has been, again, the same process or the experience was repeated again. Um, so you have to learn, you have to let yourself fail, because that constant learning and growth will make you strong to take bigger roles in life. And I think that's what failure has contributed to my life.
So I'd like you to talk a little bit about PWIC because a lot of the work that you do, mentoring भी है, career fair अभी आप लोगों ने थोड़े दिनों पहले किया था, which was fantastic. So tell us a little bit more about PWIC. कैसे, how did it come about?
Mhm.
Why you guys decided to pursue it? Who are the other founders, and so on.
Right. So PWIC is it's definitely a reflection of my personal journey and then my co-founder Farali's personal journey. We've been doing our own things, for a while. हम दोनों अपने अपनी space में similar चीजें करने की कोशिश कर रहे थे. In 2009, when I was working, in Pakistan, a friend of mine got me or introduced me to Anita Borg Institute and Grace Hopper Celebration of Women in Computing, which is the largest, conferences for women in tech. So, and I was at a point in my journey where I was looking for more women for inspiration, for role model, and I started asking these questions: why there is not enough people, in my team that are in leadership position? Where are all the women that I can look up to? Because I never thought कि मैं उन जगहों पे पहुंच नहीं सकती. I had a working role model within my mother was a role model for me. So, and she achieved her career goals and everything. So for me, it was really hard to understand why my career is not progressing the same way. So I was looking for network. I was looking for a community that I could go and be part of. So I started becoming part of these global communities focused on women in tech, only to realize that it was not just me who was feeling isolated, who was looking for mentoring, who was looking for role models, who were looking for opportunities and looking for, where do I go next? Where do I go next from here? So I started attending GHC, when I came to the US, and that gave me two things. One, it took away the sense of isolation that I had, and I was able to get answers to a lot of questions that I had about, how can I navigate office politics? How can I transform my career? How can I ask for promotion? Where can I go next? Because there were so many other women that I can look up to, and it was not just me anymore. And then there was another aspect of it that Pakistan did not have representation at the conference. There was no official representation for our community over there. So in 2015, I started a Facebook page just with the intention to at least get my class fellows or university fellows or friends who are part of tech to introduce them what was happening in women in tech space or generally in tech space. So that's when Farah and I, we got connected. We actually got connected online. And then she was also doing something similar, and we decided to do it together, join in hands, and make this effort a more organized effort. So PWIC became a nonprofit in 2018. That's when we established it as a more like in an organizational structured way. Now it has a team. It has more than 12 global chapters. It has multiple different programs around mentoring and career development and growth and learning. So just like I said, a lot of this is personal. Everything that Farah and I were looking for in our journey, we basically translated those into how PWIC is currently formed.
Hmm. So I have another question, right? So you talked about a lot of different challenges, but I wanted to specifically ask you, कोई ऐसे challenges थे that you faced being a woman? Anything specific gender-wise, or if not, that's perfectly okay, ठीक है? But did you ever face anything, or
I so there's definitely some sort of gender stereotyping, right? So there are two examples that I can give. Um, in my home, um, I was raised by a single parent, so there was no gender roles in my house. My mother was running the kitchen. My mother was running the. She was a top performing working professional in her field. So I didn't have any gender roles within that I have seen. I thought I could do both, and that's how I was trained. I knew I didn't have any backing कि अगर कोई चीज टूट जाएगी या खराब हो जाएगी या कुछ चलेगा नहीं तो मैं किसी को जाके कहूंगी कि अच्छा मेरे लिए आप ठीक कर दें. So वो um, growing up, that was not the mindset. But as soon as I stepped in the industry, for example, like my first, few job interviews within Pakistan, um, I may be a very qualified candidate who was able to answer all the questions on technical merit, but the questions like when do you plan to get married, or questions that have nothing to do with my capability or my potential or my capacity to, to do the job. That's when I realized that it has something to do with my gender, because those questions were being asked, and I was not okay with people asking me these questions in job interviews. Now I know that they are very discriminatory questions. So and I keep hearing that people still ask these questions. HR still ask these questions in Pakistan. So if anyone listening, these questions are not okay to ask. You cannot judge someone's ability to do the job just by asking if when do they plan to get married. And if you're applying for companies like these and they're asking you these, then you may, start looking for different companies. There's so many options out there. The other example that I had was in my and this is here in the U.S., right? So both me and my husband, we were working in the same company. We were in the same group in different teams, um, but he was, and we had similar job roles. So हम दोनों के projects ऐसे थे कि जिसमें there were time when he has to stay late and work late, and then there were time when I had to do that. Initially, I took it on myself by that I thought कि मेरी responsibility है कि मैं पहले कि मेरा career बाद में आता है, मुझे पहले घर जाके हर चीज को करना है, मुझे हर चीज balance करनी है. And I think there was a partnership that was needed to be built between me and my life partner. We both realized that we both have demanding jobs, we both have to balance things, so we both have to contribute. So that's where I think a little bit of gender stereotyping, in the sense that I thought कि सारी चीजों की जिम्मेदारी मेरी है, so मैं कर भी रही हूँ और साथ में उन चीजों पे there is an aspect of resentment as well. So I think you really need to have that conversation with your life partner, with whoever you're you're sharing your life and family responsibilities. And then चूंकि मैं बहुत ज्यादा लेट नहीं रुकती थी, मैं बहुत ज्यादा देर काम, I used to get my work done, but I made it a point that I will not stay long hours, late nights, just to be there. So because I wanted to be with my children and with my family, and I wanted to harmonize and balance that experience. So when there are teams that didn't work for me, I left those teams and I moved on. So if something is not serving you, you need to know what your priorities are in life and how to get there, and you will find more options. So just sticking to a company, sticking to a team, and to an environment which is toxic, which is not good for you, and you're not getting what you need out of that, I would say move on. Many options.
I think that's very, very wise again. A lot of wisdom, Homa. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so I'm going to ask you one of the final questions for this particular session. क्या तीन life lessons हैं that you would like to share with young men and women?
Teen life lessons. Lessons तो बहुत सारे हैं, but there are three that has significant impact on me. Pehla lesson, I would say your work ethics is your reference. You may be able to get in a company or get a job or a position based on, either a reference or there was an opportunity. But आपकी वर्क एथिक्स हमेशा आपको उन सिचुएशंस में हेल्प करेंगी जब कोई और आपको हेल्प नहीं कर रहा होगा या कोई और आपकी बैकिंग नहीं होगी, कोई और आपका रेफरेंस नहीं होगा. So make sure whenever you get, when you start doing something, you do it diligently. You put your heart and soul into it, and you do your best because it shows, it reflects your hard work, your work ethics, how you treat people, how you navigate different situations. That really, really, it shows, and people around you, they're always making notice of that. So um, that's lesson number one, that I learned, and it has always served me. Doing a good job and doing it diligently has always helped me. Lesson number two: success and failure is not permanent. So if you're successful today, you may screw up the next day. So don't count too much on your success, and also don't get too bogged down by your failure, because these are ever constant, they're ever changing things that you can always shift the whole thing in your favor or opposite. So usme continuous learning, continuous growth, having an adaptable and agile and flexible mindset is going to take you a long way. So don't get discouraged by failure, and don't get too, you know um, don't let arrogance and take over, when you're successful. The third lesson that I have is really pay attention to where your energy, where you're consuming yourself. Either it's a relationship, either it's a job, it's a kind of work or a volunteer work or a company of people. Really pay attention to what's taking your energy, because as you grow in your experience, and as you start finding out, where your strengths are and what kind of role you have to play in other people's life, and if you're passionate about impact and changing, it takes a lot of effort and energy. So if you're spending your energy and your, on things that are not serving your your life goals, then you will always feel demotivated, disappointed and discouraged. So मैं इस चीज पे अब बहुत ज्यादा इस चीज पे फोकस करती हूँ कि कौन सी ऐसी चीजें हैं जिन पे मैं अपनी एफर्ट, अपनी एनर्जी खर्च करूँ. एंड इट ऑल्सो, कि you have to cut the noise. अगर आपके इर्द गिर्द लोग आपको बता रहे हैं कि आप ये नहीं कर सकते, आप केपेबल नहीं हैं, आप उन सारी चीजों से गुजरने का एक ही तरीका है कि आप उस नॉइज को कट करें और उन चीजों पे फोकस करें जो रियली मैटर करती हैं, आपके लिए मैटर करती हैं, जहाँ पे आपकी स्ट्रेंथ्स हैं, एंड व्हाट एग्जैक्टली यू वांट टू अचीव इन लाइफ. And that's when, life becomes really simple, and you can start seeing progress.
To add to that, right? Also, when people question you a lot, so it's at the end of the day your life, a few years on the planet. At the end of the day, you have to do what makes you tick and makes you happy.
Mhm.
So completely adding that as well. Acha, ek hamare paas, let's quickly take a look. Somebody has. Ah, okay, all right. So Stefan is saying something. He says, "Thank you, thanks for a great interview and for smashing it in general." Thanks, Stefan. Stefan is a recent friend that we have made, by the way. So, just a quick life lesson over here. I am not a gamer. I'm really terrible at games, at playing games and just games in general. I like them. That's not the point, but I'm really bad at them. And I'm not a game developer either, or a designer, or anything, as cool as that. But we just stepped up. We said, okay, this is something that the industry in Pakistan needs. And, Stefan is one of our closest buddies right now, right? So, absolutely, Huma, I think a lot of the stuff that you're saying, you have to take the right steps, of course. You have to, do that. You have to know what you want to do. I think that's really, really important. Knowing yourself, what are your life goals? Kya hai? What makes you tick? All of that is really important. But at the end of the day, yes, you do need supporters on the way. They could be from your family, they could be your friends, they could be your work colleagues, they could be your supervisors, they could be your past bosses, new bosses, whatever.
Mhm.
Everything comes together. So, final question for Huma. Huma, what does the future hold? What are you looking forward to in 2021? Tell us your plans.
I'm still a work in progress, so I wouldn't say that I've already all the plans sorted out. But there are definitely three things that just like you said, that keeps me going. It's the continuous learning. So I'm looking forward to up my game in a few areas and learning more. And I'm equally passionate about using that learning and building something. So what I will end up building, that is still unknown to me. Again, it's a work in progress, but learning, building, and then whatever I build, what kind of impact I can bring to this world or the people around me. So whatever I do, it will be around these three things: learning to do something new, using that learning to build something, and then creating an impact. That's my constant journey in life. Like, I always like to try new things. It's the curiosity part, it's the building part that keeps me going. I don't have a list that I can share.
No, thank you very, very much, Huma. That's very nicely summing up everything that you believe in. So thank you so much. Thank you for being so articulate. Thank you for being so candid and open and honest, and just offering so many different. Well, I don't know if I should say thank you for being wise, but actually for sharing the wisdom, right? So I think that was great. Much, much appreciated, and hope to see
Thank you so
you. I
much,
mean, our
Summer.
paths will cross again.
Right. And I also wanted to thank you and your team for scheduling this. This is actually my first fireside chat or sort of an interview. I have done that for several other people, but I always deflected, opportunities to put the spotlight on me. But I think this was a really good experience. And also thank you, Stefan, for comments, and everybody else who's listening. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Huma.
Thank you. Mhm.
All right, so that was Huma Hamid. I hope you've learned as much as I did. A beautiful conversation. And Huma, I love the calmness that you displayed in your interview, right? Usually I'm like, I have a lot of energy in the interviews and it comes across, but you were just very soothing, very calming presence. So loved it, absolutely. Very quickly, I want to alert everybody. So we've been having a game jam. In case you did not notice, please head on over. There is voting happening right now, which is going to end at 4 p.m. tomorrow. So there is a prize for crowd's favorite. So head on over to itch.io. The exact address is hang in there. Oh my god. Okay, so it says itch.io/jam/epiphany game-jam/entries. Okay, and I'm actually going to be good about this and paste it as well. So these guys who've made these games are fantastic. I have to give them a shout out. A bunch of young people, usually developers for the first time around, they're doing this. So do encourage them, do play their games, do leave encouraging comments. They're going to really appreciate it. तकरीबन 19 टीम्स फॉर्म हुई थी जिसमें से 18 टीम्स ने गेम सबमिट किए हैं. This was this entire weekend. A huge shout out to the mentors that came together, workshop facilitators, all the community partners. So voting ends tomorrow at 4 p.m. Head on over. I've put that there in the chat. And looking forward to really seeing some of you on the closing ceremony on Friday at 8 p.m. So khuda hafiz, and thank you so much for watching. Do leave your comments for Huma to go through as well, and questions. Okay, khuda hafiz.